Catherine from Granate Asset Management. Catherine, thank you so much for joining us.
Great. So my name is Catherine Blursch. I'm part of the investment team at Granate Asset Management. And I must just apologize in advance that I've been fighting off a cold this week. So if I sound a bit blocked up and like I smoke 10 packs a day, that's not normal. So just bear with me. And that's why I've got my trusty glass of water like the other speakers did. I learned from their mistakes. So Granate exists to protect and grow the savings that our clients entrust to us. That's a really simple idea, but it's something that we take very seriously. We've been around for about 10 years. We've presented at quite a few of these kinds of events. And we try to talk a little bit about why we do what we do, how we do it, and what we do. And we've spoken over the years about our investment philosophy and process. And obviously, that's very important. It's kind of our guiding light, and it's the thing we focus the most on because we think it's what leads to that objective of protecting and growing our clients' savings. But it can sound a little bit theoretical to someone who's not part of the business. So today we thought, to paraphrase Monty Python, we'll try something completely different. And I hope it's going to be interesting for you. So we get a lot of questions from people that are interested in investing in our funds. And one of the questions that we get very often, particularly from advisors like yourselves, is how we think about alignment in our business. And we think that is a very good question, because in an asset manager, you often have different and competing interests between the stakeholders in the business. So there are obviously three groups you could think of an asset manager as having three groups of stakeholders. Who do you have? Well, first of all, you have the people that work in the business, the employees, who are actually there to do the work. Then you have the owners of the business, the shareholders, who provide the capital for the business to function. And then most importantly, you have the clients or investors who provide the savings for the asset manager to manage. But the challenge is that those three groups can have very different ideas about what they want. So what do each of them want? Well, employees, they want to be paid as much as possible, right? So they want to be earning nice salaries and nice bonuses. But the challenge is that an employees being paid as much as possible means that the profits are reduced for the owners of the business, so they don't like that. What do owners want? Well, they want to pay employees as little as possible so that they can maximize their profits. And the easiest way for both of those groups to be happy is to take advantage of their clients by charging high fees or by focusing on growing the pie, right? By just gathering assets rather than focusing on delivering the best possible returns for their clients. And then what do clients want? Well, clients want to pay the lowest fee possible and get the best possible returns. But that's only really possible if they can pay a reasonable fee, but they also have a competent, well-incentivized asset manager who's focusing on delivering the best possible returns for them instead of fighting over the spoils. So when these three groups are behaving like dogs fighting over a toy, there can only be one winner and two losers. And it's for this reason that we can totally understand why alignment is so important for you when you're deciding whether an asset manager is someone who should be managing money for you or your clients. But it doesn't have to be this way. What happens when these three groups come together and overlap? We think that that's where you start to get alignment. And in an asset manager, that can happen in two key areas. The first is that the employees and the owners of the business should be investors. So everyone at Granate, we call them Granatians, is an investor in our funds, and they pay full retail fees. And we're happy to do that because we've very specifically chosen quite a narrow product set of funds that we think are all good products in their own right. And secondly, because we're committed to maximizing the odds of delivering the kind of returns that our clients would expect from us. And I can tell you from my personal experience that being invested alongside clients means that we feel the joy and the pain very, very closely when markets go up and down, and it's tough. The second area is that employees in the business should be owners. And at Granate, everybody who's an employee of Granate is at some point invited to be a shareholder. And that's not in the form of phantom shares or bonuses or anything like that. It's real equity in the business that's bought with cash or a loan. And I can speak for myself when I say being an employee who's also an owner really changes the way that you think about the business. You feel like you're part of building something rather than just earning a paycheck every year. And when employees think like owners, they can start to make good decisions. So they start being able to make sacrifices for their own short-term gain for the long-term best interest of the business. They're happy for those profits to be reinvested, so for example, in hiring good people, because they know that that's going to build a better business for the long term. And one example I can give of this was, so I started at Granate in the beginning of 2020, which was just before we launched our multi-asset funds. Those funds were seeded with money from individuals in the business as well as their friends and family, and we launched them on the 1st of February 2020. And I can tell you that nothing focuses your mind quite like having the money of your friends and family entrusted to you. And then what happened? Well, COVID hit. And you can imagine that it was a pretty scary experience for all of us to see that drawdown during COVID, knowing that our own savings and the savings of people that we love were invested with us. But because we have this alignment in the business, we could double down, work hard, pull together, work very hard as a team to protect that trust that had been placed in us. So when these stakeholders overlap, you start to move from this kind of win-lose scenario into more of a win-win situation, because you're pulling in the same direction. So we come to work every day focused on protecting and growing the savings that are entrusted to us, because we know that if we do that to the best of our ability, then the returns will follow for everybody in the business, for our clients, the shareholders, and employees. And we're happy, like I said, to reinvest to the benefit of our clients. And that's part of the reason that you might have seen we've added a few new faces to our client and investment team over the last few months. So when you have alignment, everybody wins. And what's interesting is that the same thing applies for when we are looking at companies to invest in our funds. So the exact same reason that alignment is important for you when you're considering an asset manager is the same reason that alignment is very important when we're looking at whether a business is a good idea to invest in or not. So when you have a management team in a business that has a meaningful portion of their wealth tied up in shares of that business, they start to think like owners. And what does that mean? It means that instead of trying to maximize short-term profits by either screwing their clients by charging higher prices or lowering the quality of what they offer, or by taking advantage of their employees, they're instead happy to reinvest for the benefit of their clients and invest in the business for the long term. They're thinking decades out and leaving a legacy rather than how do I maximize my bonus today. And the reason they do that is that they know that having happy, satisfied customers is much more likely to create a sustainably profitable business that grows and sustains for the long term. So alignment really matters here. So one example in our funds, which has grown to be one of the larger positions in our multi-asset funds, is an American company called Interactive Brokers, which is an online brokerage. And what they do is they provide a platform that enables anybody, individual investors or companies like hedge funds or active traders, to trade in a broad array of assets, from equities to bonds, options, futures, derivatives, on a global basis from a single account. So they basically offer institutional grade tools to anybody at a very low price. And so if we think of this business in the context of alignment, which I'm talking about today, the founder, Thomas Petterfee, still owns a controlling stake in the business. He's retired as the CEO, but he's still actively involved as the chairman. And his long involvement has influenced the business in two very key ways that have been part of their success. The first is that they've continuously taken their profits and reinvested these to the benefit of the client. And what that means is they've added new tools, new products, they've invested in making the platform better and more powerful, and also in lowering fees. And what that means is that they now can offer clients the best tools available at the lowest cost in the market by quite a long way. But they've also earned 60% net profit margins. And how have they done that? Is that over that whole period, they've also reinvested in automation and efficiency, so trying to do things as efficiently as possible within their own business, long before those were buzzwords like they are today. And what that means is that you now end up with a business where clients are really happy because they're getting something great at a very low cost. And because they're reinvesting for growth, they're growing new accounts at 30% a year. They only have about 4 million customers, so there's a long runway for growth. And that means that shareholders get very healthy double-digit returns. So everybody wins. And we've recently been hunting for more of these kinds of opportunities where there's still founders that are actively involved in a business. And the more we look at those kinds of businesses, the more we can really see the benefit of a properly aligned management team to reinvest and build the kind of businesses that are sustainable and endure over the long term. So I'm going to wrap up in saying that alignment of interests is something that matters to us. It's a very simple idea, but it's something we take extremely seriously. Thanks.